Mister, I'll make a
communist
out of you.
The following may contain satire that will offend absolutely everyone. I want to apologize in advance for the fact that I don't care. Disney is under fire for filming its new live-action version of Mulan in a Chinese city where Muslim minorities are held in prison camps. Mulan tells the legendary story of a young girl who becomes a famous warrior instead of being killed in the first 15 minutes of any sword battle, as she would have been in real life. The Disney filming of Mulan in a city and country that is violating the most basic rights of its citizens is in direct contrast to Disney's threat to boycott the state of Georgia if Georgia passed a law guaranteeing religious freedom. When asked to explain why Disney filmed in a Chinese city that puts religious minorities in camps but refused to film in an American state if it guaranteed religious freedom, Disney spokesman Janice Smug said, quote, "That's a very complicated question." No, I'm kidding. The answer is money. The long green, the almighty dollar, the big simoleon, the smackaroo, the cheddar, the Benjamins, the dough, the bread, the casseroni. You see, if we bend over backwards, or even forwards, for the Chinese tyrants who forcibly sterilize women, torture and murder dissidents and intern minorities, our films will be made available to a massive Chinese audience who can fill our pockets with great jingling piles of sweet, sweet ducats, which we can then use to buy big houses, big cars, private jets, and underage girls. Or this being Hollywood, boys, all of which is much better than having small houses and small cars and having to fly commercial without the 15-year-olds. This makes it very important to us that we bring our family-friendly fare with its terrific values and inspiring storylines to the murderous Chinese, whereas if we boycott the crackers in Georgia, we'll look woke for the journos and it will barely cost us a sou. I hope this clarifies the subtle reasoning behind our decision, unquote. Disney has already announced their delightful new animated feature, Mao, about an adorable talking panda who slaughters 100 million people. Helen Raleigh, writing in The Federalist, says not only did they film the new live-action Mulan in a place, an area where Muslim minorities are oppressed, not only did they do it, they thanked the members of the Communist Party in one of those special thanks credits that they have at the end of films. They thanked members of the Communist Party. And according to Helen Raleigh in The Federalist, they actually had the script vetted. They shared the script with Chinese authorities while consulting with local advisors. And because of this, they changed the emphasis of the original animated Mulan, which was about a young girl reaching self-realization by pretending that she could fight with a sword. They changed that message into a message of loyalty, family loyalty, loyalty to the state, which of course is what the Chinese love. The Chinese love loyalty. So here are people kowtowing to this slave state, these tyrants, these imperialist tyrants, these tyrants who, even as we speak, are crushing the people of Hong Kong in their efforts to remain a democratic and free people, who are in fact enslaving and interning these Muslim minorities. And these are the same guys who just announced that the Oscar Academy is now going to require inclusion in films before they can name them best film. So now the best film won't be the best film, it'll be the best film with a lot of different colored faces in it. These are the same guys who are lecturing us on morality. It never occurs to them to think, hey, you know what? Maybe we suck. And this is why when these attacks on Trump come, and the attacks on Trump for being what he sometimes is, which is sometimes boorish, sometimes rude, it really kind of bounces off me, because even though I disapprove of that in Trump, I don't think I'm listening to the most saintly people in the world. And really what we should be paying attention to is policy and ideas, not personalities, because all these personalities have a lot to be desired. All right, so, some ideas, this is the thing, you listen to people and people strut around and they pretend that they have something to say and they pretend that they're noble or virtuous. And it really does. Every time I see these rioters, every time I see these BLM or Antifa fascist rioters tormenting people in restaurants or attacking people, I always think to myself, well, why do they consider themselves virtuous? I mean, why don't they understand that they could be the bad guys? And why do they think that they're in some position of higher virtuous vision that they can impose on others? What have they created? What have they done? You can look at George Washington, one of the greatest men in all of history. You can look at George Washington and say, well, he owned slaves. He had a blind spot about his slaves. He truly did. So he was not a virtuous person, as virtuous as we'd like to think. But he did great things. I mean, he did great things with his life. What have these people done? Namely, nothing. They've done nothing. And you look at the idea. So then you say, okay, so you're just as bad as everybody else. Of course you are. We all are. We're all about the same virtue-wise, unless we're truly evil. So why is it that I should listen to your ideas? What is it about your ideas? And some ideas are so bad, you have to wonder what's behind them. You can't really think that someone thinks it's going to be good for civilization to defund the police, to attack the police, to look at crime in a neighborhood and say, well, this is the fault of the police. That can't be right. That can't be a good idea. And so you have to say, well, what is it? What are you really opposed to? And really what they're opposed to is they're opposed to Western civilization. They are. I mean, this is not like me attacking them saying secretly they're opposed to Western civilization. They openly are opposed to Western civilization. And the question is always, what do they plan to replace it with? And when we look at the places they take over and see the graffiti, the rape, the abuse, the tyranny, we understand this is what it is.